Good morning, everybody. Today we shall discuss the essay Obstructions of Learning by Samuel Johnson. This essay was published on the 2nd of February 1760 in the Idler. Idler, as you know, was a periodical essay, and periodical essays became very famous during the 18th century. This is the 94th essay in the Idler. Let us find out what the essayist says in this particular essay. At the outset, the essayist says, it is common to find young men ardent and diligent in the pursuit of knowledge. This youth or young age is the time when usually a person is devoted to knowledge. This is the period, usually the period in which you people are. This is when you try to acquire knowledge. This is when you try to learn something. And how you try to learn something? Diligently, with a lot of interest, with a lot of vigor, with a lot of energy, and with a lot of interest. So this is the period. With the passage of time, however, this intensity decreases. Now, in whose case this intensity decreases? Let us see what the essayist writes here. It is common to find young men ardent and diligent in the pursuit of knowledge, but the progress of life very often produces laxity and indifference. So with the passage of time, a laxity, a lacking something, that interest lacks. You gradually lose that interest, that vigor, that intensity, that desire with the passage of time. So not only those who are at liberty to choose their business and amusements, but those likewise whose professions engage them in literary inquiries pass the latter part of their time without improvement. Now the writer says, this doesn't only happen in case of people whose professions are different from literary pursuits, those people who have literary pursuits. Suppose I'm a teacher. I am supposed to read something. I am supposed to upgrade my knowledge so that I can teach my students better. It is natural on my part. But there are some people, suppose somebody becomes a mechanic, somebody becomes an engineer, somebody goes to some other profession where learning is important, but education is no more important. So that vigor gradually decreases. Now suppose I have to read a book every day. I have to read a book every day so that I can update my knowledge. But a person who is a mechanic, who is an engineer, need not read a book every day. He need not, because he does the same thing almost every day. There is a kind of repetition in whatever he does, and therefore he need not read books almost every day. So people have to choose different professions to make a living. That is what the writer says. Their profession might not have anything to do with education. Once you select suppose a person who is a cashier in a bank, if he knows how to count money, then every day, because he counts money, he improves upon that ability to count money. But tricks of counting money do not change all the time. Every day he has to count money in a particular way. He has to keep a record in a particular way that has been prescribed by the bank. So there are not any improvements. There are no improvements required. And therefore, the writer is of the opinion that this decline in interest is marked not only in case of common people who are less interested in education, but also in case of professionals who are engaged in literary inquiries. Now, the writer says, in case of everybody, irrespective of what their profession is, there is a decline in the interest with the passage of time. Towards the latter half of life, almost everybody spends their time without seeking any improvements in knowledge. They seek pleasure from other sources than what books can provide. So there are other forms of entertainment available to them. There are other books can provide you entertainment, but there are other sources of entertainment too. Now, as you grow in age, you try to find out other sources of entertainment instead of what you get from books. In the second paragraph, the writer talks about the reasons for this declining interest. Why there is a decline, why there is a decrease in the interest of people. This abatement of the vigor of curiosity is sometimes imputed to the insufficiency of learning. This is point number one, insufficiency of learning. The first reason is, suppose you have not read well, suppose you have not learnt your lessons well when you should have. I mean, during your youth, during your young age, when you are young, when you are young, when you are a school going child or college going young man, suppose you have not learnt your lessons well, then towards the later part of life, you will find a decline in interest, a greater decline in interest, right? Of learning as a virtue, men are supposed to remit their labors because they find their labors to have been vain, and to search no longer after truth and wisdom because they at last despair of finding them. So we have already discussed the first point, that is insufficiency of learning. People find that labors of their youth have not been rewarding. Suppose you have learned your lessons well and you are rewarded accordingly. You worked very hard and you got the result of your hard work. Then there is no decline in your interest. But most often than not, in most of the cases, this doesn't happen. Some people work very hard, but they are not suitably rewarded. So obviously there is a decline in interest. They no longer wish to search after truth and wisdom. This search makes them hopeless. Now, in some cases, what happens? You see, those people who are not seekers of truth, who are not followers of truth, those who have not followed the right paths in life, they overtake you, they go ahead of you. Those people who have not been diligent students, hardworking students, they go ahead of you. So this creates a sense of disdain. This creates a sense of disdain or hate. Others not adhering to ways of truth and wisdom succeed in life, while those people who adhere to ways of truth and wisdom do not succeed much. Now, if that happens, you see a person who is not working very hard, he becomes extremely successful. So this creates a sense of dislike in you. This creates a sense of disdain in you. This creates a sense of hopelessness, despair, you can say. You don't like such a thing happening. So you lose your interest, you lose your faith in truth and wisdom. So these are some of the reasons why the writer says there is a decline in interest with the passage of time. In the third paragraph, the writer says, this reason is falsely assigned. Of learning as of virtue, it may be affirmed that it is at once honored and neglected. The writer says learning is a very strange virtue. Learning is a very strange virtue. It is honored, respected by people. People know its value. People realize its value, but it is often neglected. Now, he gives the example of a person who neglects learning, a person who neglects learning in the earlier stages of life when he should be learning something. He yearns for it. There is a craving in him. There is a desire in him to learn it. Throughout the rest of the life, he realizes he has committed a mistake. Throughout the rest of his life, suppose he has not read, not educated himself the way he should have done or to the extent he should have done, he feels as if he has committed a mistake. He feels he has committed a sin. Surprisingly, although he laments the loss, he doesn't take steps to mend or repair it. He says, okay, I have not read, I am sorry I could not read. I did not give importance to education as I should have given. But what I can do now? I can't do anything now. I have grown old. These are my declining years. So there is absolutely no need of learning. So they no longer wish to search. Surprisingly, although he laments the loss, he doesn't take steps to mend or repair it. He doesn't want to change his ways. He recognizes that he has committed a sin, he has made a mistake, but he doesn't take steps to rectify that mistake. An idle person who has neglected his learning never applauds or appreciates himself. You must never have come across such a person. A person who has neglected learning, he can never become happy. He can never appreciate himself. He can never say, I have done the right thing. So throughout the rest part of his life, he suffers an ignominy, a smallness. He feels bad. I'm sorry, I neglected my studies. He is always found condemning himself. He condemns himself. He blames himself. This is my mistake. I should have learned something. Have you ever seen a person who blames himself for the interest and zeal that he took in learning when he was young? I don't think so. You have not found a single person who says, oh, I worked very hard. I am very sorry. He never says that. One who has worked hard feels delighted. At least he says, yes, I worked hard. His education might not have fetched him the desired result. He might not have attained success. But at least there is a satisfaction that he has done his best. That he has at least tried to learn something. Now next, the writer goes to the hindrances that stand in the way of learning. Hindrances are obstructions. What obstructs this learning? The professions that human beings take up in life do not have anything to do with much learning. I told you some time ago that suppose somebody is a mechanic, somebody is a cashier. He has to do the same type of thing, stereotyped kind of thing every day. Somebody who has to count cash, he might invent a new way of counting cash faster. But he knows 2 comes after 1, 3 comes after 2. So one who has learned 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, he can count cash, there is no problem. What is there to learn in life? There is nothing to learn in life for that particular person. And somebody who is a mechanic, who works in a garage, engines work the same way, no matter which type of engine it is. So once he has the required training, he has acquired the right training towards the later part of life, okay, he says he becomes an expert and he doesn't require more training anymore. And as you grow up, demands, you have to cope with the demands of life. You have a family, you have a wife, you have children, you have to take care of your family, you have to earn a living, you have to earn for your living. Then there are the demands of the profession, right? You have to go to office at a particular time, you have to stay there for 6, 7, 8 hours, you have to work very hard, and by the time you come back you are extremely tired. So there are demands of family and demands of profession. These weigh heavily on a person. If they wish to spend some time reading something, they have to steal time from their occupations and responsibilities of families. So they hardly get any time. They really do not get much time to read and to acquire knowledge. So if they want to read something, they have to steal time from their busy schedule. That is what they have to do. They have to find out some time, they have to steal some time, snatch some time, forcefully create some time so that they can devote it to studies. The right, and that doesn't happen most often. Such a situation very hardly comes in the life of a person who is working somewhere. Now, for example, the IT professionals, they leave home at 8 in the morning, they travel 60, 70, 80 kilometers, and by the time they come back, it's already 10 o'clock at night. So you are extremely tired, and when you are extremely tired of body and mind, physically you are tired, mentally you are tired, you are not in a mood to read. So this is an obstruction. This is a demand of profession. And suppose back at home you have your children waiting for you. So just as when we grow up, we have our children waiting for us. Throughout the day, they have not met us. Father comes back home in the evening. Children are ready to play with him. So what becomes important for a father? For a father, children become important. Their happiness becomes important. Family life becomes important. So acquiring knowledge takes a back seat. He doesn't receive the importance that it once received when he was a young man. The writer is of the opinion that books provide a calm delight. Books provide a sense of serenity, a sense of peacefulness. You can sit, you can relax, and then you can read a book, right? And they provide you a sense of delight. They make you happy. You are delighted. A sense of happiness that comes silently. It fills the mind with unbound joy and a sense of tranquility. Peacefulness. You can sit down anywhere, right? And you can be lost in the joy of reading. They fill the mind with a sense of satisfaction. However, human mind always seeks for sprightly things, energetic and lively things, something more lively. You must have heard about bungee jumping. With a rope tied to your feet, you have to jump from a mountain. I mean, the excitement that you get, there is every possibility of death. But young people, they go for it because of the excitement involved in the whole thing, right? Mountaineering, that is also a form of pleasure. Watching movies, going to a theater. So these are other forms of pleasure. So when man grows up, he keeps his book aside and goes for other forms of pleasure, right? And there are certain pleasures which are found instantaneously, immediately. you can get pleasure immediately. But book, when you read a book, it will take some time. You come to the end of a novel and then it might fill you with delight. And when you are reading a novel, you are not able to read a novel in one sitting. It takes a few sittings, right? So there are other sources of pleasure that man seeks with the passage of time, which provide instant gratification to his senses. Now the writer talks about the best thing about learning. What is the best thing about learning? He says, learning can be cultivated and enjoyed where no other pleasure can be obtained. Suppose you are interested in mountaineering. There must be a mountain nearby. That is the basic thing. There must be all equipment available with you, or there must be a company which would be providing all equipment required. But if you need a book, if you want to read a book, you can read it at home. If you are interested in mountaineering, you have to make sure it's not raining outside. Snowfall is not taking place. It's not snowing outside. So there are, or you can enjoy it during spring or winter. So you have to take care of so many things. But when you are reading at home, you don't have to take care of anything. Right? So learning can be cultivated and enjoyed where no other pleasures can be obtained. It can be obtained irrespective of time, place, season, climate, cities and country. Right? You can sit back and relax. And when you are in a relaxed mood, you take a book and read. Since this is easily available, it is deferred from day to day. Something is easily available. We say, okay, it's easily available. It's already with us. I can read this book anytime. I can derive pleasure anytime. Okay, let me go for some pleasure which comes to an end tomorrow. Right? For example, mountaineering. Mountaineering can be followed during a particular season of the year. So when that season comes, you are more interested in mountaineering, not in books, because that season will change. But books are there with you for the rest of your life. Now, so because it is easily available, we don't give it much importance, and this omission becomes a habit with the passage of time. You don't read it today, you don't read it tomorrow, you keep on postponing things, right? So because you keep on postponing things, you make a habit of it. You develop a habit of postponing, habit of keeping things for some other day. A person's attention is diverted towards other sources of pleasure. With the passage of time, the soul shrinks from intellectual labor and intenseness of meditation. So reading a book and deriving pleasure from it requires some amount of intellectual work. So to understand the suffering of a character in the novel, you have to have sympathy, you have to have empathy, you must have human feelings, you must be kind, you must be gentle, you must be nice. You must try to understand why this person suffers. So there is some intellectual labor which you are doing. But when you are watching a film, you don't do any intellectual labor. Things happen in front of you. The hero has fought with the gundas. You don't have to fight with anybody. You don't have to do any intellectual labor. You don't have to think. because most of the films have the same type of thing happening. So there is no intellectual labor. And when you keep on postponing things for a later date, it so happens at a time that it doesn't happen at all. Because you keep on postponing things, keeping it for a later date, that pleasure never comes, right? And the writer says there are people who are supposed to advance learning sometimes. Some people are there, for example, suppose I'm a writer, suppose I'm a reader, I'm a writer. Suppose I'm a reader, I have a large number of books in my library. In my personal library, I have a large number of books. I have read almost all the books. Writers cannot provide any novelty or newness to me because my mind is already filled with images. My mind is already filled with all kinds of images. I know how things move. I expect from the reading of the novel, I can expect what is going to happen in the subsequent phases of this character. I can guess because I have read so many novels, hundreds of novels in my life. I have hundreds of my books in my library. So there is no novelty or newness that the writer can create for me. The little that writers can provide to such a reader is varied under a mass of general notions. So whatever little the writer can provide, writer works so much to delight me, delight the reader. So whatever little, I know most of the things. Writer tries his best to surpass me, to overtake me, to provide some new information in a new way, to provide a new treatment. Now, love has been treated as a subject of films for hundreds of years. But even today we appreciate when the treatment is different. Even these days, films treat love. Their theme is love. But when love is treated differently, we appreciate it. So that novelty, that newness, who is the director and the producer, they attach to the film. Similar novelty can also be created by the writer. But because I know, because my mind is cluttered up, filled up, full of different types of images, I don't take much interest in whatever the writer writes. Such knowledge is like silver mixed with ore of lead. Such knowledge is like silver which is mixed with the ore of lead. The labor of separation is more than the benefits obtained. You work very hard, but you get very little benefit. So naturally, you lose your interest. The writer says, when a reader reads a lot, writer cannot produce much novelty. And when there is no novelty, no newness, there is a decline in interest. You work very hard and you are rewarded accordingly. So you maintain your hard work. You take delight in your hard work. But you work very hard. On the other hand, you don't get as much result as you expect. So obviously there is a decline in your interest. Right. Then the writer says there are different types of writers. We stop here today. We shall go to the next part of the essay in the next video. Thank you very much.